Welcome to this week's episode of the Drivetime podcast. I'm joined in the studio this week by Sarah Sloman, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Paythru. We're going to be talking about all things EV and the amazing technology that's coming in the plug and charge space, so stay tuned. Welcome to the episode, Sarah.
Thank you, Jacqui. I'm a fan. You know this. I listen to you when I'm in my car, so it's really surreal being here with you in the studio.
And we had a little mini pod, didn't we, at the EV Summit, which was great. So we managed to capture lots of different sound bites from that event, but we've not had a proper full-on conversation in the studio.
We haven't. And it's that sort of end-to-end ecosystem piece that we keep talking about, software versus payments. It's all the same thread.
It is. But before we get into, you've been at Paythru now for 4 years, but you've had a fairly illustrious career leading up to this point. But I thought it'd be really good just to go back and talk about kind of where you've been, not forgetting, of course, was it 3 years ago you were Cox Automotive's Woman of the Year? So a bit about you and kind of where you started and when you kind of first ventured into automotive.
I have always known that transport was a piece of my puzzle. I love the way it completely just touches everyone's lives. It doesn't matter if you're a bus driver or designing a bus lane. You are connecting what I call people to places. So even since the age of 5 or 6 years old, I was fascinated about how people got around. And my dad used to work for a sort of local council redesigning roads. And for me, it seemed so simple yet so vital. And I remember being about 18 and saying, I'm going to follow you into local authority. And his face when he's like, why are you doing that? But for me, it was everything. And so I structured all my career, all my education around environmental science and climate change and how that kind of engineering stuff could impact stuff. So it's about connecting the kind of human element to the physical element. What can we build that makes cities move faster, congestion ease, and now in the EV space, the air cleaner. And that's really my kind of fundamental go-to. So it's gone from working in economic regeneration departments in Wiltshire County Council through to now, 22 years later, working at Paythru as their Chief Strategy Officer. So making sure that those payments that are happening for EV drivers are happening correctly, they're happening quickly, and they're happening worry-free. That's really my motivator.
What was your education story? Did you kind of, from your dad's, what he was doing in local authority, you decided to go into that? There wasn't a course surely then that would just do that. So what did you do?
You're right. There was not, and nor should there be, because nobody can be expected at the age of 10 or so to know what they want to do. I'm pretty sure I told my primary school teacher in year 6, which is just before you go to secondary school, that I wanted to be a rock climbing geologist. And she broke my heart because she told me that most of the rare earth materials had already been found. So I needed to think of a more basic job. But we are in that space now. I've got a child who's about to be 13, and I'm helping them to sort of think about what could they do? What inspires them? And I would say we all have a collective responsibility to inspire. I spend a lot of time explaining to people, mentoring people. I go back to my university. I speak at colleges. We've just done the EV rally, and for 25 minutes, I hosted a visiting college who was like, what's the EV rally all about? That's those little light bulb moments that we're all capable of to inspire the next generation, because now there's so many jobs. And just to put that into perspective, I sat with my daughter on Sunday and we went through websites about what A levels exist, what colleges could you go to, are you suited for university, would you be better? She's not even 13, but you have to have that conversation now and tap into what they like, what they love, what they can contribute to, and what makes them tick. And I just love the idea that they are our future. We're building a future for them, making sure it's environmentally sustainable, economically sustainable, and socially sustainable, from which they can thrive. And credit to them, some college websites were awful, useless, just gave you the subject title and what you might study. And others gave videos and pictures and really brought it to life for her. Guess which one she'll go to.
So was your first job then, just go back, so you came out of college, uni, and then went into, what was the first sort of job that you stepped into? Was that in Bristol?
It wasn't. It was so Wiltshire Council's Wiltshire's a huge county and super rural, like hyper rural. So it was in the economic regeneration team, and fantastic boss, Tim Martiansen, I hope he's still out there somewhere, saw something in me that I think he realised I was more on the sort of people side. So my role was about making sure that people were benefiting from grants or access to money or jobs, but they put me in the road safety team because it had a strong sustainability ethos. So sustainability meaning buses, school drop off. And I was first introduced to the transport hierarchy about the fact that we'd love you to walk or cycle or lift share or get the bus. But if you can't, what else can you do? Leave the car at home is the kind of general direction. Yeah. Now it's take an EV. So you're not just reducing congestion. You're cleaning up the air at the same time. Because there was a big fear that we would simply replace every single internal combustion engine with an EV, and then we would have lost the battle, because of course that just still means congested cities. It still means people are late to work. It still means billions are lost in the economy because the work isn't being done, the labour isn't there. People are sedentary, they're not travelling actively, and therein lies the point. And so in the sort of medium part of my career, about 10 years ago, we were using central government money because the NHS had spotted that people who were sedentary were costing the NHS a lot of money. But if you just cycle or walk to work, you're getting your active levels of fitness in. So we were giving away grants to offices who were happy to put showers and lockers in and encourage cycling or walking. And the penny just dropped that this is so much more than just building a city. This is about building places for people.
Has it made it different for different groups of people who have different responsibilities outside of just getting to work?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely spot on. Generationally, we're segmented. We're segmented economically as well. You know, bus companies put things at sort of £2 price caps on buses is really helpful. But ultimately, we all prefer to just have our own metal box with 4 wheels. It's convenient, or so we think. Before we started recording, we were joking about Top Gear style challenges. And we actually did do one in the west of England where one person had to cycle to the university from the city centre. One person lived shared and one person got the bus and one person ran. And the runner one, followed by the cyclist. The vehicles were the last, because we have this perception of time that being in a vehicle is actually super efficient. It's really not.
And actually, I love the idea that we're now trying to encourage people to make better choices about mobility and just being active. So really important.
And learning globally, you travel a lot. I travel a fair bit. I'm more European based, but you do travel the world. So you'll have seen some amazing things. And just recently I caught up with a school friend and he lives in Germany, and he was describing how, one, his cost of living is incredibly low. 2, they're all encouraged to adopt these sort of travel pass type things, which means it's incredibly affordable to go anywhere. And then hiring a car is kind of alien. Like, do I have to? So I just really love the fact that after 15 years of him living like that and 15 years of me living rurally as I do, it's a very different game for us both. And you know, that's the whole point of EV. It's supposed to be an option for you. And I like the option of EV simply because whilst it's not going to save the world 1 mile at a time, because we do still have manufacturing complications which are bettering every single year, I do still think it's a better option if you're a high mileage city driver.
Yeah. So coming back into, how did you end up getting from transport into tech? What was the route for you there?
It was pretty clean, actually. So the project was all about encouraging all forms of transport. And that naturally led on to fleet, super visionary fleet manager, Carl Nicholson at North Somerset, which is part of a sort of combined authority area. And another fantastic person, Lloyd Allen. We joined together with this project. There was about 30 of us on the project team extensively. And our vision was to create this charging infrastructure. And I did some research and I am highly confident that, one, we had the largest EV fleet of its time because we jumped really early and just committed.
When was this? What year was this?
This would have been 2017, 2018. The second element of it was we installed the first sort of public site. So it was in a leisure centre car park, fully timber, glulam structure frame. The solar panels were made in the Cotswolds. The designers were from Bath. You know, we made it all about the ethos as opposed to the product.
Yeah.
I'm super proud of that because it still stands there today. And, you know, right next door was Instavolt, and people still came to ours because it's just a wonderful environment to be in whilst you are charging. So again, connecting that kind of people motivation. And then shortly after that, the project ended. I went to work at Elmtronics, which got acquired by Immerse, who are the Statkraft-owned European charging charge point operator. So very naturally, payment element of that EV journey stood out to me as a missing piece of the puzzle. And I'm in strategy. We think 3 to 5 years ahead. We're always thinking, how do you get to the end destination? Where do you want to be? And I saw this company called Paythru, and I was just inspired by it because they were trying to sort of crack that global nut of payments. And really, our best bet is to just make the simple incremental improvements that nobody's made yet. So yeah, we're really proud to be partnered with the likes of Adyen, you know, global bank, strong environmental ethos right at the core of it. So it kind of ticks all the boxes about what we're trying to achieve, but that consumer element, that customer experience, the driver's experience is what really matters to me. That's my get out of bed thing is let's make this better.
There is so much investment. Fleet is 70% of all new vehicle sales. So it's significant. And actually tax breaks, in this country particularly, you're incentivized as a fleet to try and make the right decision and reduce carbon emissions and everything else. So I suppose working in fleet then, fleet drivers need a way of paying for their charge, and they are on the road a lot more. They are driving as part of their jobs. So I suppose that was the natural space for you to go into.
Yeah,
so
every minute counts. I think it's Paul Kirby says, I'm sure he wasn't the first, but I do love it when he says it. If the wheels aren't turning, we ain't earning. I'm sure he says it better than I do.
Catchy.
That's kind of why I avoid saying it. It sounds rubbish when I say it. But you are right. We are going to FM50 later, and I reckon 70% of all the awards will be for diesel and petrol innovations. They won't be for EV stuff. And that's why I go, because it's a long time ago that it was just petrol and diesel awards. And now it is getting, noticeably more EV. So I'm looking forward to it. But the fleet market is so huge. And whilst we think they've had lots of fiscal stimulus to help them make the decision to go EV, there's a lot more that could have been done. And the payments is just the thin end of the wedge. I have visions of people who, particularly, I really do think about the self-employed fleet driver who, again, time is limited. According to the Office of National Statistics, I think the average salary is £69-70 a day. And in my world, where we require something called pre-authorization for a charge, so checking that you've got the money and you're good for it, sometimes it's as much as £55. So if you're doing that twice a day, but you don't have that money in your account, then you'll be denied the charge, number one. But it doesn't come back instantly in every case. Sometimes it's between 7 and 28 days. And if you're charging once or twice a day, how are you expected to keep up with yourself and think, well, did I ever get that hold back? So they don't take it, it's held. And that's the other thing we don't understand, because then they see a double whammy. So the money is held and your money has been debited at the same time. So you'll double down and then the rest of it comes back later. And that can be, one, confusing, two, distracting. And there just has to be a better way. And we talked about Charlie Cook from Right Charge and Credit Where It's Due. That's a great product. We've also got people like Power and the other big one, All Star, of course, where they try to make that easier for you. But that's the big fleets, not the people on their own. They're still at the mercy of apps and QR codes and receipts that you have to hunt down and a credit card that might be rejected by that charge point operator. It's a minefield. And that's what I'm really keen to fix.
Yeah. Be good to talk about the EV Cafe, because you found some great people, and you do Car Fest, and I was able to join you there a couple of years ago. But talk about the EV Cafe, because that's a great
I love it.
idea.
I absolutely love the EV Cafe. It was an idea born out of lockdown, and Johnny Berry pulled us all together. He's at Navuna Vehicle Solutions now, and he spotted a gap in the market where we're all locked down. All the events we were looking forward to going to were cancelled, and people need to talk. You need to have that innovation experience, that conversation that leads from an idea through to, hey, let's team up, to, oh my God, we did it. And so he pulled together sort of friends he knew. That was, myself, John Curtis, Paul Kirby, Sam Clark, and that made 5 people. Our mission at the time, we were doing 1 or 2 webinars a week with hundreds of people dialing in. And we funded it ourselves, and it got to the point where that became untenable. So we had like Patreon, and then that paid for a Zoom license. And then that meant we could have more than the 300 people on. And so as the years have progressed, it's now 5 years later. It will be 6 years in 2026. And during that time, our mission hasn't changed, and that is to accelerate towards zero emission vehicles. So whatever that means for you, is it having a conversation away from the sales floor where you can ask what you really want to know without being sold to? Is it that you're looking for partners to deliver a project idea that you've had? We'll introduce you, it's no problem. Is it coming on our podcast to just have a bit of fun? Or is it tuning into the weekly news, which again started by me on the monthly webinars and has gone to exceptional heights by John, because John Curtis is so creative.
He's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah, it used to be a little section on the what used to be a 2-hour-long webinar. And I used to do a sort of 10-minute skit on the headlines, and I'd always dress up and be stupid. And John's so creative, he's turned it into a regular slot, which I actually think is more popular than our entire webinar now. And it's sponsored by Drax Electric Vehicles. So we just bring the facts to the audience, minus the jargon, and not selling anything.
It'd be good to know kind of the audience and whether you have retailers on there, whether we can get more retailers listening to it when they've listened to this, but they should be tuning in.
They should. There is something I've been talking about for a long time, which is it all falls down when it comes to the consumer being all excited about it and then maybe doesn't have a good experience on a face-to-face basis. And actually, lots of cars aren't even bought face-to-face these days, which I still think is amazing. You haven't had a chance to, it depends, I guess, how sensitive you are to technology. If you're not that bothered, you're happy to buy like that. But I love technology. I need to understand it before I buy it. And I'm happy to do so. So yeah, the dealership thing, I was even driving past yesterday to a particular dealership, but bent over backwards to talk me out of going EV, even though I went there to go EV. It was quite soul destroying. And I know for a fact that happens on a daily basis. So our majority of the listener base for the EV Cafe is business development managers, as you say, people looking to how do I best sell EV? That's why they come to us. There's a lot of people who are fleet managers who, again, want to be inspired by other fleet managers and learn rather than waiting to make their own mistakes. They just bypass that by learning from the stories and the people and the guests that we have on. But we've got a huge ethos on the person. So we always like to drill down into what do you do, why, and what made you want to be that person? Because it's quite inspiring to be listening to somebody who has devoted their lives to it. And that's what's special about the five of us is we're all very deep into our careers, 20 years each. And we all care so deeply that you almost can't pay us to say anything. We are so strong about what we believe in, and the authenticity shines through. It just does. And that's what I want to see from dealerships is help those people selling cars, whether it's online or in person, to so deeply, truly love and believe in those vehicles. And that's where the EV Rally comes in. We've had some fantastic people on there like Lex Autolease, Black Horse Finance. And there was one particular chap who won a competition internally to come on to the rally with us this summer. And we put him in the back of this car that had massage seats and big 32-inch TV that comes down from the screen, completely completely ridiculous screen. And I said to him, because John and I host this together, the EV Rally, what inspires you about EVs? And he said, I knew very little about it. And now he does. And that's the penny drop moment. This is why. So I take annual leave from my more than full-time job at Paythru, and I use my annual leave to do the EV Cafe and the EV rallies shamelessly.
Going back to you said you went to a retailer specifically to try and buy an EV.
Yes.
And this is the thing I find deeply frustrating is if retailers could feel more confident about the benefits of why a consumer could be in an EV and understand that total cost of ownership piece, which is when I worked for an e-commerce agency previously, and we built TCO tools for an OEM to be able to help consumers compare this thing with that thing. And what we did, and actually it was Lucy Trott who worked with us at the time. She'd come from CAP, she's now at Salesforce, but she was super passionate. She was also a fangirl of yours. We both kind of thought you were amazing. But she understood how the data that CAP held is so complicated. And you look at a massive PDF that an OEM would put on a website about WLTP, and you're like, no one's going to read that. Actually, Sarah, are you working to train the AI models to help those EV decisions more easily? I've got no idea how far you are in that kind of roadmap.
Oh, it's a massive
tech.
gap. It'd be a really welcome gap. People are using their AIs like their best friends. I say the AI because there's so many different ones that people love.
I know.
ChatGPT and Gemini seem to be the two majority.
Yeah.
And people are using it instead of Google now. So sorry, Google, but I do think you're right. And the more you tell it, the better it is, and so on. But it's still a little ropey in our sphere. We're very pioneering, particularly at Paythru. The things we are doing are so new to the world that AI doesn't really help us with that. In fact, sometimes I worry because if I deliberately challenge AI and ask it something with a prompt and the answer is not relevant or so basic, I just ask it, do you even know who I am? AI, I've been talking to you all day. It just annoys me.
Do you know me?
I know. I have started chatting back to my AI. This morning I had to go into about not using commas correctly.
Yeah.
So, it needs to learn. But it's there as a kind of steer, not as an absolute. And you will never take away the human element of a sales experience. You just won't. And that's why AI tries to emulate a human. So let's go with that. Let's get the human to steer the AI better. Perhaps a consumer goes in for half an hour, like at the Apple Store, let's choose you a car situation. Be enhance the experience with it rather than thinking it's an either or. And you asked me about sort of what happened. And I genuinely think the salesperson had been given a target of other vehicles that day because there was everything they could do to talk me out of it. And I think the tables will turn on that. There'll be better sort of guidance from the powers that be to make them sell EV. But I don't want people to buy EV if it's not right for them. 2030 is only 5 years away. It's nearly 4 years away. That is when you can not manufacture a petrol or diesel car anymore.
In the UK.
Yeah. And those goalposts have shifted many, many times. And we've seen trade arrangements fall down. So the stock we were expecting didn't come. And I think we will have to be flexible on it, whether we like it or not. And there was a time it was 2042, then it was 2035, and then it was 2030 again and 2032. It jumps around a lot. And I don't ever get particularly riled up about it because the impetus is there. The drive is there. We must clean up the air. We must make this happen. And EV is the quickest and easiest way, cheapest way to do that.
Yeah,
so I'm all for it. But the dealership element, the consumer experience of purchasing a very expensive asset is the other one. And in terms of the total cost of ownership model, that sounds awesome. Let's include the how do you finance it in there too. So I ended up leasing because for me to have a salary sacrifice private lease, which included EV miles, was where I needed to be because I knew exactly what I was spending. I've moved house like 4 times since I got that car. So now I've got a home charger, but I haven't set up my EV tariff yet. So it's still 22p or something with all the standing charges added in. So I think total cost of ownership can get you to a point of seeing a comparison, but it won't give you your hard and fast costs. And of course, it depends how you drive. If you then go and use a public charger and fill it from 0 to full, it'll be 60, 70 quid later. That's going to ruin your cost model that you had on your TCO. So it's about that kind of take it with a pinch of salt, but know your facts.
Yeah.
The vehicle would cost you this per month for a lease. You average this many miles. You can expect that to be anywhere between 10 and 20 pence per mile. You can claim back extra in the government on that, or your employer, or your self-assessment tax return. So by the end of the year, you'll have a better feel for whether it was comparable to petrol and diesel. And spoiler alert, it probably was.
We've seen obviously a huge influx of new product coming into the market now. There's been a lot of excitement around new entrants. They're highly affordable and they give consumers a massive amount of choice. So they are really affordable. What are you seeing around the new entrant space then? What kind of excites you about that product?
BYD is doing a good job. You know, they've got the Surf, which is a little sort of 2 to 3. I know it says 5, but I'm not sure I'd want to sit in the middle seat. It's a small car, but it's really affordable. And again, Lex Autolease, Chris Chandler took that on the rally and just loved it. His face was beaming and the face doesn't lie. I had the BYD Seal one year and the Sea Lion 7 the next year. For me, I prefer the Tesla experience with the big screen and it kind of leaves you alone whilst you're driving, whereas the BYD has advanced driver safety and constantly tells me off for not looking or for looking tired or for fiddling with the screen. And so I just got annoyed with those.
It's literally watching your face.
It's got cameras on you, yeah, and you can block them, but it reports you for that as well. So I personally didn't like the idea that every time you turned on the BYD, you had to go into its menu settings to turn off those safety features, because by law, they have to recycle every time you turn the vehicle back on again. So for me, I would stay with Tesla versus BYD. The car that stole my heart, though, was this year was the BMW i4 E40. It was just planted. It was fun to drive. It looked good. I kept taking photos of it. That's always a clue. But it brings me to the point about bums on seats. Whether you're a fleet driver looking for a new van, if you're self-employed and you get to choose your own, or whether you're a fleet procurement manager who wants the best for their staff, or in this case, you're a family who wants to choose their next car, you can't be expected to make that choice so quickly, can you, if you haven't actually driven the thing?
You need to test. I mean, we talk about test drive, but I think as well with it, with EVs, it's not just a test drive, it's the whole experience change you need to think about, because you're driving something totally differently. Like you mentioned, your first experience, you didn't have an at-home charger, but you trusted, because you'd worked for a charge point operator, that there was going to be enough charging where you needed it. So I think if you're making that switch and you're trusting the public network, you need to have the experience of longer than just an hour
a week,
driving around.
I think. We know from behaviour change studies that true behaviour change is like 6 months minimum. So if you make it to 6 months, you're pretty much converted. So lending somebody, this is the idea I had, is if you were able to borrow, lease or hire a car, say it was Europcar for a week or 2 weeks, and then you chose that brand, could there be a way? So say I borrowed a BYD Sea Lion 7 for 2 weeks. I absolutely loved it. I paid Europcar for the privilege. But then when I went to buy the car, BYD somehow reimbursed me, or Europcar does, and then they pay the difference. So it's a stimulus from financial perspective.
Yeah.
I'm already in love with it. I can't wait for it to arrive. It's like my baby that I've just ordered.
Yeah.
And so you're invested then. You know you've tested it. But you're right. A drive around the block isn't really going to sell it.
No. I did have a Tesla test drive a little while ago and I did the 24-hour thing, but I didn't need to charge it. So even though I kind of brought it home, I have a charger at home, I didn't plug it in. And it wasn't quite right for my life because I have kids and dogs still. So I need something, and I've stuck with my Volvo because I love it, but I've gone hybrid rather than just, so I do try and do most of my miles now using battery only. So I plug it in every night. I do the station and back. I very rarely have to fill it up. So I feel quite smug. But
No, good for you. Good choices. Yeah. And you're right. The Tesla Model 3 does have a sort of small boot that you can't get dogs in. But it wasn't raining for you. It didn't have blinding sunshine. You didn't have to play with the lights. You didn't have to defrost the car. These are the features that you didn't get to try, but at least you got to try the handling. But that's why the shows will never go. So, everything electric in Farnborough is one of my favourites. There's hundreds of test drive vehicles you can do there. And it's not just you, it's going home and talking about it to friends and colleagues.
So that's a good thing to signpost. And everything electric in Farnborough, when does that happen?
Usually
in the
October
calendar?
time. Yeah,
Okay.
It's a really good one. I love it for the test drive reasons. And I always go to shows to learn from other people. So I really like Fleet and Mobility Live. That's sort of 8th, 9th October.
That was recent,
usually.
wasn't it? I missed it. I was away for that. But I heard that was really, I bumped into someone on the train who went and they thought they thought, it's not going to be that busy. Rammed, they said. Really massive, really rammed. They had 300 people on their stand in a day.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
You don't go, it's in the NEC, it's out of your way. All of these places, if you've made the effort to go, it's because you're either there to learn or buy. So it's really worth being at, even if you don't really know. And I do love to listen to the speakers because if they've been curated correctly, the speakers will bring you things that you can't Google and you can't ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly as it should be. So I think it'd be really good to pick up some of the speakers from that event and maybe get them on the pod and just
for sure. They get to meet you, if nothing else, Jacqui.
Stop it. Yeah. So, yes, honestly, you're hilarious. So, you really. But I think that's how do we kind of start to extract? So, Move is a really good event. There were some great things in the Startup Village. I think you did Move a couple of years ago with the EV Cafe.
Yeah.
I went again last year or early this year, and there are so many companies that I hadn't even come across that are doing really cool things around taking data out of vehicles, telematics, driving, servicing, automating, loads of cool things. So actually there's a lot of technology that's really coming down the pipes quite thick and fast at us. So with the EV Rally, do the OEMs provide the vehicles? How does that come about? And what was the inspiration for that? And who started that whole movement?
Yes, the EV Rally is quite unique. And every single time we do one, we try to do it differently. And I am not the brains behind the operation. Obviously, I'm on the text the whole time. Try this. How about this? You've got to meet these people. Let's go here. Let's go there. But in this case, the OEMs, they want to sponsor it because they give us the media crew cars. So they're in the shots the majority of the time with the camera team. So it makes sense. We've had multiple beautiful cars as a result of that. But more than that, this particular one, we've just come back from Wales and I loved it because I called it the Rally of Firsts. So we had Iceland, who have only got one EV on their fleet. It's a refrigerated van and they brought it with them and they went around all their depots and they showed it off. And that was why they were there, to prove to themselves that they are making a good investment.
That's great.
Others should follow suit.
Yeah.
We had a truck, which it was their last, they no longer have diesel at all. That's their last one. So this last one is now with us on the rally, fully electric truck. And people who had never driven EV at all had been lent vehicles by Renault. And so the EV Rally is about proving the art of the possible and showing that any of those myths are just so beyond existing now. And the next one we hope is going to be a level up again. It just has to be because we're doing such a good job of showing that you can do these things. And OEMs, it would be nothing without them. They want to show. We had a Mercedes-Benz trucks, and just this morning, an article went out about how many hundreds of these Amazon has just procured. And prior to that, we had the only one in the world on our EV Rally last year.
Yeah.
And this year, we had one of 150 with us on the rally. And then Amazon are now, they have beautiful footage of all of them in a row. It's just a pride piece.
It is. I think that you're proving the point, aren't you? I think someone said to me at the EV Summit that you didn't plan your route at all. You were like, no, I just know it's going to work.
I never do.
I can't remember who it was that mentioned it to me. It might have been Lauren from ZapMaps. She was like, because obviously you've got apps like ZapMaps who are making it easy for consumers to find where they can plug and charge. And then so you can just find it on the app. There is an app, you can find it, off you go. And then for someone said to me, you're like, no, I'm just going to go. I'll find a charger. I don't care.
I have so much faith. We have that many, 85,000 plus chargers in the UK alone right now. You just don't need to worry like you used to need to worry. And that's the message I often give people is, yes, please, by all means, download some apps. It's really useful to give you confidence that if you get stuck or you are concerned, but the sort of driver infotainment systems are so well connected within the vehicles now that
it will tell you where the charger is.
Can you charge soon? I'm like, nope, we're going to 0%. I hate you.
Oh my God.
Oh no, I'm awful. I am the worst. And I really enjoyed this. The credit where it's due to the BYD seal. It said you will have 21 miles. I had 21 miles. I pulled in at 0% and it was still going. So, whatever. You just don't have to worry. But then I used to do that with my diesel as well. It's just living dangerously.
Like, it's on fumes, people. I've only run out of fuel once. And it was, and I had to drive a child to a birthday party. And I was like, we're running really late. And I just thought,
excuse for missing a party I've ever had. I'll use that.
I got the child to the party. Or I think I was like within 100 yards of it, and my car went and just like stopped. And then some very nice man stopped and went, "Do you want me to push you out of the way?" And I was like, "Could you please? Thank you." Somebody else had to drive me to the petrol station to get the fuel to put in my car. But it only ever happened once in my entire life. But I think you also said that there was a statistic that from the AA, in fact, there's like a belief that, I'll run out of charge. And in fact, there was a statistic that I think you quoted from the AA that there are no more people running out of charge than there are running out of fuel.
Less than, yes. Because not least of all, because the car shouts at you. Even on some cases, if you've already got a preloaded map route, it will divert you if it thinks that you're going to push its luck and run out of charge. Obviously, you can override it. But I call my Tesla the robot car because it's just got a mind of its own. It will do what it wants to do, and I'm merely a passenger in this experience.
We're going this way. What?
Yeah.
I've got to go that. No,
I want to go that way. I know. But I want to be in control of my own destiny. I know which charge point operators I trust and which ones I'm happy to pay 89 pence per kilowatt hour for, which is a fair whack of money. So I want to choose it myself, not just because it's the next available one. I think that what I call voting with your wheels is more prevalent than ever. If you turn up to 20 brand new chargers and for some reason the one you picked didn't work, if you've got to get back in your car to move bays, I'll probably just drive off. And like you described earlier, that one service station, so it's a big M5 junction, got 3 charge point operators in the same zone. You don't have to go anywhere. And yeah, one was half the price of the other one. And people just don't know. They're just loyal. So I'll go to that one. Why are you doing that? Have a look. If you download an app, it could be 10 pence cheaper. But I guess because business users just tap and go because it gets put through their business, they're not really fussed, whereas the private consumer is.
You wouldn't normally, when I look at the price of the petrol before I pull in.
On a massive totem, but you don't get that privilege.
No, exactly. So I was thinking, when you go to the charge point, how do you know? Do you have to download the app to be able to find out what the charge is per kilowatt hour?
Yes, I think it's the only thing in life that I pay for without really having a clue how much it's actually going to cost. Because newsflash, no quick maths here. I know how big my battery pack is. I know how much of that is what we call the usable battery pack. I know the rough percentage because I've pulled in. But so I've got a budget then. I've got to think, well, hang on, I don't want to spend more than 30 quid. So that means I've got to go, 10 kilowatt hours plus this, that'll be about 30 quid. No, you don't do that. You just plug in and walk off. And you if you're lucky, you've got a QR code to scan so that you can do an in-charge monitoring session on your phone. As long as you don't close the web page, as long as you've got signal, it's completely insane that, as I say, you tap and you walk. It's like walking off from a petrol pump. Do you remember the game when you try and don't put an extra penny in? I just really don't want to do that. Why can't we have a preset? Well, we can. Technology will get there that you can have a preset amount. I remember getting the most expensive Costa coffee I've ever had because I was burning time thinking it'll be a bit longer than it's been. Came back and spent £40. I was only supposed to get a £10 top up to get me to the next junction and off again. So yes, my very expensive Costa coffee experience.
Yeah, well, because you just have to distracted and left it charging.
Because it's so powerful, and the Tesla can onboard the power really quickly. And the charger was a 350 kilowatt capable charger, which I thought was fantastic, but I had no idea it was going to be that quick.
It's like, shit.
Yeah, there we go. Takeaway.
Oh my God. Yeah. So actually, I found weirdly in Italy when we were traveling, we did our kind of summer road trip. I found it really easy. The spaces where the chargers were always empty. So we drove all the way through, and then we kind of got to Italy or Switzerland. We kind of had a day where we were doing a walk at some point in between. It was near Lassebrunn, and we parked the car and we kind of went down the thing. And I was like, brilliant, we're in the EV lane. And I just found it, plugged it in, and off we went for our walk. So my car was the best charge it ever had was in Italy.
I hope you can read the signs though, because obviously some charge point operators, and this is what I talk about in the industry of lack of consistency. Yeah. So wouldn't it be great if when you pulled up at that charger, your car said to you, "Oh, welcome to the charge point A." I can tell through agentive AI or whatever works in that car scenario, this will cost you X pence per kilowatt hour. It does or does not have an overstay fee. You are required to pay for parking because it's reading the signs. If it can watch my face, I'd like it to be able to read the signs.
Yes.
That would be great, because the one thing we see a lot of is consumer concern and confusion. And I think we're onto something here where, whilst we know how many chargers have been successful in terms of starting a charge, giving a charge and paying for a charge, what we don't know is how many drivers drive off because they are confused, or they couldn't get it to work, or they gave up too easily, or they knew there was one down the road, or they didn't really need to do it anyway. It was just a convenient place to park.
So my car doesn't automatically charge. You have to go in and tell it, because at the moment I've set my car up to charge overnight. on my night tariff. So I have got a night tariff, but it automatically works with my pod point and with my car. But if I then plug it in somewhere else, I had to learn. I was like, why isn't it charging? Oh, had to go into the car app and tell it to charge, not just wait for the schedule. So I was kind of like half an hour away from the car going, let me just check if it's charging. And if I hadn't have done that,
well, I'm glad
I'd have
you
been
did,
really
but
frustrated.
isn't that the point? If we can just design, actually any sentence has the word just in it usually is far harder than it sounds.
Couldn't we just?
Go,
Wouldn't
no.
it be great?
I was going to say, wouldn't it be great if we could have a world where, because you are away from home, your app knows that because you've got geolocation enabled. So it knows you're trying to charge the car because an unknown charger has just connected to itself. Yeah. None of these things need inventing. They all exist, but nobody's joined them all together yet. And why not? Because there's no commercial model to bother doing that. It's not going to sell cars. So it's going to have to be a collaborative thing. We all need to agree to a new sort of standard of finding, locating, using and paying for chargers. Yeah. And that is so intrinsically linked in the OEM world. I think a clever car will be more popular to buy than a not clever car.
I love that, wouldn't it? I say that wouldn't it be great if statement a lot.
But that's because we're in innovation. We're allowed. We
work in tech and we say that all the time. And actually that's where innovation comes from. Exactly. I think innovation comes out of frustration. Yes. It's like, why don't we just do that? Wouldn't it be great if you could just do this? But I think joining up tech is the mission that I'm on, actually. So that's it's like, why doesn't, we talk a lot about how the industry is so siloed. Stop it. Stop being siloed and connect up the things out of your silo. So
So back to you then. Why do you think that is such a siloed situation?
I don't know. So what the industry being so siloed, I think because like in OEM spaces, we've always had the sales department, the fleet department, the after sales department. And actually we all just need to have how is a consumer buying your product and what kind of consumer are they? And we were talking, so I bumped into Lloyd from ROI on the train. And I said, Lloyd, you should come on the podcast. So ROI do a lot of work with fleets. And the work they do actually allows consumers. So if you are walking into a retailer, for example, and are you a fleet customer? Are you a consumer? Historically, fleet customers get ignored by retailers because it's a really bad experience. Because you think the retailer thinks a leasing company is going to buy it and you might not buy it from my retailer. You might buy it from somewhere else. So if you're a company car driver, I don't really want to waste my time with you, which is terrible because actually you're still representing a brand. So what you could do is say, are you a fleet buyer? Great. Let me capture your lead. What's your company? Brilliant. I can see your terms here. All of these things can be back-end loaded. We work with systems where a system of record, you can back-end load and back-end code anything. So if you're a consumer and you're buying it yourself, great. Are you a salary sacrifice? Who's your provider? Brilliant. Let me put in your provider. All of that will give you the term that you've got and I should be able to supply you your car. So it should be frictionless for me as a consumer. Shouldn't matter who's looking after me. And if I want to buy it from you, I can actually select you as my dealer. So you should be the supplying dealer. And if you're not the supplying dealer, you'll certainly be the dealer that services that vehicle. So you're still going to get custom out of me at some point in my life cycle, whether or not I'm buying it from you now, or whether or not I'm advocating for you as a business for my friends and family. So I think bigger. Stop thinking about just the next day or the next moment or the next sale. It's about a much bigger
Yeah, it feels like the go
thing.
Fast, go alone, go far, go together thing.
Yeah. So I think the siloed thing is just an inherent industry challenge that I think we're gradually getting out of.
Good.
Which is great. And I think technology will completely strip away the silos. And the way that we think about consumers now, it's not just when you're buying the car. Manufacturers spend a huge amount of money selling the one vehicle, whereas actually the life of that vehicle and how you live with it as a consumer is when you will kind of build your advocacy. So loyalty happens when you own it. Loyalty happens in after sales and then you come round again. So also retention's a big thing. How do we keep people in their EV? So as you come out of your vehicle, what does your experience feel like when you're going into your next vehicle? Do they target you early? Do they make it easier for you to change? So I think that's the whole keep people in the cycle. If they've had a great experience, which manufacturers are proactive at working with consumers to keep them in the same vehicle for longer or a different model because their lifestyle has changed or whatever. So I think that's why stop thinking in silos, but think about the whole experience is where I get quite excited.
Me too. And I feel like this agentive AI piece is really strong because if I do surrender all my data. I always say yes to everything. I really don't care. I know I should, but I
yes to cookies, whatever.
Yeah, I know. Especially when they say yes to cookies or pay £3.95 now for no cookies. I'm obviously going to say cookies. Kia. Massive brand follower of Kia because they were my first proper car. I had a Citroen for when I was, 18, but then I bought a Kia. So I would buy, and then one of my first EVs was also a Kia, and then the second EV was also a Kia.
So good.
But what is the bit I really like is the driver interface. I don't think it's that good.
Yeah.
But I don't care because I love the car. I love the experience. I love all of it. And the same with Polestar. I've never owned one, but I love them.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. There's just that's the thing. If you're tuned into what you do and don't like, and your phone knows that and your laptop knows that, I really do want to see dealerships or online places selling cars to be a little more tuned into what you do and don't like. I'm not just talking about pop-up ads. They're really infuriating. We all close those. I mean, when you've proactively gone to somewhere to buy a vehicle, I'd like it to already know me. That's why I say yes to all my data, but it doesn't, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, it should. And I think that's where we're trying to build things like, we have account areas now, so the consumer, when you've bought the car, you can keep in your account area and then service your car. So we can connect up when you've bought it, and then when you service it, so your service pack should go with you.
Superb.
In the whole thing, which is really good. So just thinking about then, Sarah, what do you get, or what's the next big idea that you think is coming down the track that you get excited about, or that you're working on, or that Paythru are working on?
I am just in love with the plug and charge concept. And lots of people say, plug and charge, I know that's what Tesla do. And that's a really good sort of beginning of the story. That's more like auto charge, because it's you as the driver, you with your app, you with your payment card, you with your vehicle, and one charge point operator. So that's auto charge. It's all connected in a beautiful straight line. Plug and charge is a lot more complicated because there's many, many different actors in there. You can do it through your energy company app. You can do it through the vehicle app. You can do it through any charge point operator who's registered with the ecosystem. So for us in the payment space, there's a few question marks over validity of card. Obviously we're trying to make sure it's as fraud proof as possible, and AI has a big role to play in that, in spotting fraud. So I'm excited for plug and charge because it will just bring that seamless payment experience, almost spookily so. So if I allow my vehicle to store a card on my behalf, you set it up once, and then I learn which charge point operators are sort of using that system, I can have the Tesla experience wherever I go in a car that's not a Tesla, if I so wish. And so everybody should wish.
Yeah.
I would say the downsides of that are, will we be benefiting enough from consumer perks and benefits, which we're only just getting going with in the industry, with very few consumer perks and benefits, sort of off-peak charging at charge point operators, maybe the occasional flyer that you get given saying, 50p off your coffee if you're charging here at BP Pulse. There's all such tiny, tiny things. They're not driving behavior. They're rewarding you once you've arrived. And I want to see points. I want to see those points being converted into currencies. I want to see the opportunity to use my, Bitcoin or other way of paying that isn't just pounds and pence post-tax. There's got to be some very intelligent ways to pay for your EV charging.
Yeah.
And I ask the question a lot, and some people want it completely wrapped into their monthly bill. I'm not sure I would love a sort of £300 EDF bill, because it's a fairly expensive life of mine driving around the country in my EV. So I like to know exactly where I stand, and I like to be rewarded for that. And at the moment, there's a lot of companies that are refusing certain types of payment card, for example. So I can't even use my favorite Monzo because they've had some examples of fraud. So they've just said nope to that. Others can't use their American Express card, where they would get points that turn into air miles, because it's very expensive to process an American Express card. So they've said no to that. So we are seeing a constriction of freedom on how to pay for things. And I just want to flip that around.
Yeah, and say, stop it. Just like all pre-authorized. You talked about pre-authorization as well. And I think there's I love the idea of rewarding. I spent a little bit of time working for the people that owned the company I worked for, the e-commerce agency, were actually a retail loyalty agency that was their main thing. But they had warehouses full of Pyrex. So they had, seriously, it's like, how can that be sustainable?
I want to need Pyrex.
And I know, well, I don't need Pyrex. But it was like, the supermarket, collect your coupons, go back and collect some plastic rubbish, and which is not sustainable in any way. And also, but it's rewarding loyalty. So you're rewarding me to come into your supermarket. I've probably driven there, and I will probably be there for half an hour. If you have a charger outside that I can plug into, surely that's a better and more sustainable way of rewarding my behavior to come and shop in your supermarket. And I still don't get why more supermarkets and retail parks don't have charging. So we talk about destination charging. I learned a lot at the EV Summit this year. So when you go somewhere regularly, if you go to the gym or you go to a supermarket once a week, twice a week, what can we do to be able to connect up those dots, unsilo our communities so we've got charging more readily available? Just because they don't own the car park. Who owns the car park? Who can make a decision? And there's lots of funding still, isn't there? The Levi Fund, there's lots of other funding available through local government. Sarah, what can we do to do that, to make that more available?
Luckily, I do think this is a pretty easy one. So destination charging is absolutely the unsung hero of the EV charging space because you can be a lot more flexible with that pricing. And the reason for that is that land is cheaper than motorway or sort of, I would say, A-road locations. The chargers are often lower powered, not always, but sometimes. And then that means that they're cheaper to install because you don't need such a big grid connection. And the dwell time, so the time somebody's there, is longer. So again, you don't have to give them a 50 kilowatt plus charge or an ultra charge at 300 kilowatt because they're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours anyway. Supermarket one's a little bit different. So back in the early days, we had Volkswagen and Pod Point. They teamed up and they gave you free charging whilst you were in the shop. Now, I read some study that showed that the average shopper, they'd only plugged in for half an hour, so it was about 6 miles worth of charge. So not a lot, but they were spending more like £10 more per basket shop, as it's called. So essentially, they felt they were being rewarded, but because of the way the supermarkets work, they were being tempted into buying other things. So it was just win, 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 win all across the board. So nowadays, a bit more modern, sort of 5 years later, Smart Charge at Sainsbury's is doing a killer job. So it's destination charging, tick. You can park and charge your car. I think it's about 100, 150 kilowatts, so quite powerful. But in half an hour, it's a significant charge, 100 plus miles. And you get nectar points for doing so. That's an end-to-end ecosystem.
Well done, Sainsbury's. Congratulations.
They did have a £75 pre-auth when they first started, though. They quickly conned onto the fact that consumers weren't willing to do that. So, but again, credit where it's due. They listen to their consumers and I hope they win. They're doing very well.
That's good. So other supermarkets maybe could follow suit.
Why not?
I mean, I'm an Aldi shopper personally because I've got 3 hungry children.
Pod Point, or was that Lidl? I can't remember.
I tend to. I kind of go for my local, but Aldi and Lidl, brilliant and really fun social media from the Aldi team. So well done. But so I think that's really exciting. And so I suppose some of those amazing chargers that are coming, plug and charge, brilliant. So that's a really good sort of innovation that's coming. And then what could we give retailers? We always like to leave some kind of practical takeaways from every episode about where can retailers go to learn more? What can they do? How can we signpost either other podcasts? The EV Cafe is a brilliant one. You can listen to them all on demand. So where can they follow the EV Cafe? I'm assuming LinkedIn. Follow you on, where else can they follow you? Instagram.
Hilarious. Yes, we're on all the channels. But if you Google the EV Cafe, we do come up first. But then directly underneath is a restaurant in London. So you're welcome to follow those. But the EV Cafe, look for our face. We are on all the channels. But we really want to just have that open door policy. So if you're a retailer or a fleet operator or a business development manager for a charge point hardware manufacturer, you'll be in good company. We make it fun. We try to open the door for all... I should have said funner. Paul Kirby will kill me. It's funner, which isn't a word, but it is a fun word that John and Paul and I use quite often. We want to just ensure people can come and get the information they need. But specifically, the only thing you can do is have one-to-one conversations. Don't be afraid. I personally benefit from attending a lot of shows, and then I'm going to Transport and Energy Forum in a few weeks' time. And that will be a very open door sort of conversation where we hear the problems that landowners are facing. We hear the connection issues that the National Grid is trying to solve. We understand the commercial pressures that charge point operators are under. And my job, I think, is to keep banging that consumer drum because it's the consumer experience. It's the consumer who pays those commercial models. They're the drivers who are choosing your vehicles. They're choosing your charge point operator network. They're choosing your payment card provider because they like it. And it's as simple as that.
Absolutely right. So any energy providers that are doing great jobs, because actually they're now all kind of coming into this space. They're all like coming in and going, charge here, plug there, tariffs. I think OVO talked about, they actually, even if you haven't got an EV, you can bank EV miles, which I thought was brilliant.
For when you get one.
I know.
Exactly.
I thought it was a really
It reminded me of, speaking of energy companies, I don't know if you remember when you bought a washing machine or they'd worked out how much energy is required to power that washing machine and they'd give you the equivalent money off your bill and they called it 1,000 free washes. So yeah, the EV market is experiencing a similar sort of lure from our energy companies saying, oh, X number of free, inverted commas, charges.
I do. And I have like the night tariff and the EV tariff, whatever. So I am trying to make sure that I then do everything at night.
Oh, wow.
So the tumble dryer goes in at night, the dishwasher goes in at night, my car gets charged at night, everything happens at night.
But good, you're their favourite customer, not least of all because I think you're about to say the grid is cheaper, cleaner, greener, and
less busy.
And also, if they can't discharge the energy, there are fines involved for those who generated it and can't distribute it. So we will be seeing people encouraged to store their energy inside their cars for us. So completely giving away all power and control for charging that car. Yeah. I'm all for it. My car stood still for 3 days this weekend, unusually. But feel free to take and put in the energy that you want.
Leave it there. I'm happy about it. Definitely. So I think just sort of wrapping up then, so EV Cafe is one kind of useful source. Where else could retailers go? And what we talked about the EV event in Farnborough, it'd be good to kind of get more people. Can we get more retailers involved in the EV rally, do you think? Is that something we want to do?
Definitely.
We encourage people to get involved?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in you can't sell it unless you've tried it. And I know retailers are hoping to encourage their staff to give things a go. But you've got to just immerse yourself in this industry. Like every new technology, you'll only learn through experience, and you can parrot away and read facts. But unless you're connecting with the people who you're trying to sell to through experience and hard-earned experience, I might add, that it just simply won't happen. I really love to think forward, and I'm looking forward to the day where we don't call them EVs. They're just cars.
God, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if we just had a car? We didn't
Let's call this whole episode.
I'm driving an LPG or I'm driving a diesel. You go, no, I'm just driving a car. And are you, obviously you're very UK based at the moment, but are we kind of going to be seeing you across Europe, across the world? Can we kind of mobilise your
It's kind of gone
evangelism?
Full circle. So yeah, I joined Paythru and we were sort of operating globally, but because we've had this huge tech stack revolution, we've taken it back down. But the EU is huge for us. America's huge for us. I think the next couple of years are going to be, you'll be seeing a lot of us infiltrating the EV charging world.
Excellent. So EV Rally could be global. We need to maybe
EV
get
Rally
some people.
should be global. I think so. EV Cafe kind of already is. We do have a lot of dial-ins from Australia, from Sri Lanka, I've seen, India, we've got Canada, America. Yeah, we're very, very blessed with because it's all watch on demand, right?
Yeah.
So people can just watch it wherever.
Yeah, that's really good. We're kind of now streaming in 43 countries in this podcast, which is incredible.
Superb. So do we have to learn lots of languages now? We should.
We're very lucky that the world, we can transcribe and you can translate. Actually, we do have transcripts, so you can then translate into other languages. Should. But I think it'd be really good to see if anybody that listens to the podcast wants to have an EV rally in their country, they should definitely get in touch with you, Sarah Sloman.
It would be wonderful. Thank you, Jacqui.
Thank you so much for joining us in the podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
It has. We didn't wear our branded T-shirts. What was I thinking?
You get one. So actually, we've got the, I spilled coffee on mine, like within 5 minutes. But we have got Drivetime T-shirts. But yeah, we will be giving out those T-shirts to people that have been on the pod. So we've got some.
Well, I've got one and I was going to bring it, but I failed you. I'm sorry. Next time. Sarah Sloman, thank you very much for joining me on the Drivetime podcast. It's been brilliant. My pleasure.
It's been electrifying. So that was a great episode from Sarah Sloman at Paythru. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, to give us a like and a follow, and you'll never miss an episode of the Drivetime podcast.